Aloha everybody, welcome back to my channel. Kaiwaza with you, and today a special topic that's been requested, and I kind of hesitate to do it because it's a subject so important to me. I don't want to screw it up, but I'm not a perfectionist, so I believe that it's better to just put something imperfect up than not do it at all. And if I try and make this completely perfect, I'll never do it. This is already like the third take of this or something I've been trying to do. So the statement is, or the subject is, my interest in Hawaii. How did that come to be? How did I come to be here and stay here? I could talk for hours about that, but I'll try and keep this brief. This guy right here is William Penn Snyder. This was my grandfather. Lived in Pennsylvania, and when I was a small child, very young, we're talking 4 years old, about 4. By the time I was 5, it had already happened. He was an audiophile, had a lot of music, component stereo system, quadraphonic sound, wide interest in music. Had seen a group of Hawaiian performers in the early 1900s traveling around, and became very enraptured with that music as a result of that experience, and had collected, by the time I was born in 1961, had about 100 Hawaiian records, in addition to his hundreds of other kinds of music. So when we would go and visit them, which was frequent, often, and that we'd be listening to that music, Hawaiian music, something in me just felt very, very drawn to it. I can only call it homesickness. It was the feeling, like I just listened to that music. I would go and literally sit by the speaker and be like enraptured, by it. And it was like a homesick feeling, like just a feeling like that's where you should be. I knew before I was 5 years old, I was telling people, I'm going to live in Hawaii. I wish I had the picture. I had a picture of it somewhere, and now I can't find it, but my family encouraged it. I mean, they got me a record player before I was 5. They would start buying me Hawaiian records because this was the early and mid-late 60s, and their Hawaiian music, Hawaiian records were readily available in the department stores, etc. at that time. So I started getting a lot of Hawaiian records, and they got me I used to get those paper lays at like Woolworth. And I got a grass skirt. I don't remember who gave me a grass skirt. It must have been my grandmother or something. And as a little, 5 or 6 year old kid, I would walk around. I have a picture of it somewhere in the grass skirt. And they used to make me do it for visiting relatives or whatever, which I gladly did. I was happy to, except at some point, I don't remember the age, some age, I guess they decided it wasn't that cute anymore, but that's another story. So yeah, and I was getting a lot of Hawaiian records. I was reading everything I could find in the public library, in the school library, books like this, everything about Hawaii, any book about Hawaii at all I could find as a kid, I was reading. And Hawaii had just become a state in 1959. So while I was in elementary school in the, mid-late 60s, the 60s, there were a lot of films being made, kind of educational and documentary kind of films being made about Hawaii. And it seemed like every single year of my elementary school life, there was at least one film about Hawaii that we would see during the year, and you wouldn't know when it would be. And I'd be so excited when you'd walk into class and the teacher would be like, okay, children, today we're going to watch a film about our newest state, Hawaii. And my heart would just palpitate, and I would watch these movies and be like, just trying to remember and soak in every image they would show of, the university or the beach or this or that. And I would just because I knew I wanted to live there. We had a painting in our elementary school of Paul Gauguin. I thought I had it marked here. Now I've lost it. But one of his Tahitian landscape, one of his Tahitian landscape paintings that was on the very large one on the hallway, and I would often just stop at that and look at it and just, be drawn to it. Like if somebody had put up a painting of your childhood home, and you would just look at it like, whoa, that's my home. I was really drawn to that painting. yeah, so that really continued. And I would have a lot of Hawaiian records that they would buy for me at department stores and drugstores and everywhere. And I would play them at home, and my bedroom window looked out in the backyard, and there was a very beautiful weeping willow tree we had in the backyard in upstate New York. And in the summertime, the skies would be blue, and it would be going back and forth in the breeze. And I would just imagine in my head like it was this island in the ocean, and with the swaying trees and playing this music. And I didn't have like a false image of it, because a romanticized image of it, because, as I said, I was reading, so much and seeing a lot of films. But I knew, like, Honolulu, where I wanted to be, specifically Honolulu, was a big city. I mean, I knew I was not going to like a little grass hut by the beach with people, stringing flower leis and eating pineapple all day. Like, I knew that, in my head, I was aware, Honolulu as being this sort of very cosmopolitan city with not only the native culture and people, but people from China, from Japan, from Latin America, all over the world. That it was a real polyglot place, and that really attracted me because, after upstate New York, we moved to South Carolina when I was in 6th grade, eventually, and it's very black and white, and at that time, the early 70s, still very divided between black and white. I was bused to elementary school in the inner city, and vice versa. So, I was living during that time period, and very racially divided. And that was always something that appealed to me about Hawaii, was this idea that it's just polyglot, very multiracial. The majority of marriages are interracial, were at the time. And so you end up with this population of people born there that are just, to me, beautiful. And there's something just, I don't know, I really like this idea. I always was attracted to the idea of Hawaii being very multiracial, multicultural. I think that's a lot more common now, and the mainland's a little different now. I mean, I'm not going to say it's perfect, but, it has changed some. So, but at that time, that was not the common thought of how people thought everything should be. I was always attracted to that. So, yeah, I mean, this is little me being obsessed with Hawaii in 2nd grade. Already knew this was me later on in junior high school. Just very nerdy and completely obsessed with Hawaii. I would do artwork and do drawings, and I knew I was going to be living here, but I didn't know when. Like, I never knew when that would happen. I didn't really envision it happening in college necessarily. I didn't know. I didn't have any vision of when that would happen. I just knew at some point I'm out of here and I'm in Hawaii. That's where I'm going. Honolulu specifically. I didn't want the outer islands. I didn't want that whole experience. It was the city of Honolulu. When I went to college, I graduated high school in 1979. I went to college in my hometown, Coker College in Hartsville, and I went for a year. And the summer after the first, and loved it. Very different experience for me. I was more like nerdy and I don't know, not popular or whatever in high school. In college, it was real different. I just made an effort to be super outgoing and get involved in all these activities. And I was a class officer, and it was completely different. So after my first year in college, 1980, summer of 1980, this movie came out called The Blue Lagoon. And I, with what's her name? Brooke Shields and Christopher Atkins. And I went to see it. I was visiting a friend of mine in upstate South Carolina, and he and I went to see this movie in the summer. And when something just hits you, like, I don't know what it was, but like, I watched this film and it was just life-changing. Like, I know it's not even that significant of a movie, but and not even the story necessarily. It's just, it was so beautiful. It was filmed in Fiji. It's just visually like, oh my gosh, this beautiful island, they're very alone. If you don't know the story on this island, it's these two little kids and a sailor person that are the only people like saved from this shipwreck or whatever, and they live on this island together alone. They're brother and sister, the little kids, but they don't really know what that all means or whatever. And it's kind of their coming of age story alone on this island, and they eventually get rescued, but they live there growing up. And the music was beautiful. I have the soundtrack. I just, to this day, I love the music. But something about, and I think it was something about the sensuality of the movie, that they were alone. So there was nobody telling them what was wrong and right and whatever. I am a gay person. And I think watching that film somehow, it was an intersection of ideas. Like there was the intersection of the idea of Hawaii, this beautiful, tropical environment that I just knew I wanted to be in. And in this film, this idea that they were unfettered and nobody was telling them, right and wrong, and they were just experiencing love very, very naturally. It was like very natural to them. And I went back, and I swear I went to the theater and saw that film like 5 times. I just would go back and back and back and back and watch it again and again. And it was that summer that they were talking about reinstating the draft. I don't remember what was going on, some war somewhere at that time. Had been several. And it freaked us out. And we were thinking, how do we know? Oh my gosh, like I can't go to war. What would that be? I can't do it. Like, what would we do? We thought, well, let's get out of the country. I mean, we weren't thinking right. I don't know. Like, maybe we could go to work in Australia. Let's, go work in another country and somehow we would escape it. I don't know. But we actually started investigating, how would we go to another country or whatever. And we could continue, going to college. And somehow it just came around to me through this process. Like, I thought, why don't I go to college in Hawaii? Like, why don't I go to Hawaii now? I think I want to go while I'm in college, and I can see whether I like it or not. We were not loaded with money at all by any stretch of the imagination, but my mother had some savings for, college. And at that time, my father had died when I was young, when I was in 6th grade. And at that time, as an 18-year-old, you were still getting Social Security death benefits or something. I don't remember what it's called. If you had a parent, that had wage-earning parent that had passed away. And I was still getting, monthly, some kind of income for my support from that. So between that and between what I had saved for college, I did have money. It wasn't like I was going to be a homeless person out on the street, but not rich or whatever. But like, I thought I could do it, and I applied to Hawaii Loa College, which was a small private school on the windward side of this island. And I got in, and I didn't tell anybody in my immediate family that's what I was doing. So that's a whole other story. But then when I told them I was been accepted and I was going to start in January 1981 and go to Hawaii. So I did come out here, and the only thing that surprised me, and this will shock you, I suppose, most people have images of like grass skirts and grass shacks and palm trees and whatever, and like no urban sprawl or whatever. In my head, I was very surprised when I got to the college campus in the morning when I woke up, because we arrived late at night. But when I woke up in the morning, and it was like in the middle of nowhere, and there was like a cliff mountain in the distance with waterfalls, and it was all lush, and there was really nothing around us but this small college. And I had thought in my mind, I really had thought in my mind that Oahu, the island of Oahu where Honolulu is, was entirely urban, because I had heard, it's the entire the whole island is considered the metropolitan area of Honolulu. And I thought, in my head, I thought, okay, so the whole island is literally like urban sprawl, suburbia and downtown, and the whole island is, but it wasn't. I mean, Honolulu is kind of confined to Honolulu, and then there's smaller towns or whatever, but it doesn't go forever. It doesn't like, and I didn't know that. I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, it's like a jungle out here. Yeah, so for me, that was how I got here, you know, that's how I got here. And I stayed from 1981 through 1987, the beginning of 1987. And that is going to conclude part one, because the truth of the matter is, as I'm speaking, is that there's just no way I can do this all in one video. So I'm going to stop there, because that kind of explains the part one of my attraction here and how I got here. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more. Comments are most welcome below. If you go back and check almost any of my videos, it's kind of fun to go back and look and see. There's usually a conversation continuing in the comments. So we'll talk to you guys later.